Mercedes doesn't want you to think of its new A-Class sedan as a car. Well, it does, of course, because quite clearly it's a car, but it also wants you to think of it as one of these, a mobile device, because in the cabin, there's more technology than in the brand's flagship S-Class. So let's see what it can do. The A-Class sedan will arrive in the first half of 2019, and while pricing and specification is still being finalised, the recently updated hatch range does offer some pretty concrete hints. And the good news for Aussie buyers is that much of the good stuff will be included as standard, even on the cheapest cars, including the tech-filled cabin and voice assistant, which is not something all international markets can claim. There's a wireless charging pad and an army of phone connection and charging points, but our favourite thing by far is the augmented reality feature added to the navigation, which beams a live image of the road ahead of you onto the screen when you're approaching a turn, complete with floating arrows to tell you exactly where you should be turning. Now the bad news, Mercedes says there will be a price premium for the sedan, expected to be somewhere around $2,000 over the hatch equivalent. Now this nicely textured and layered cabin is all about the technology, a point that's made pretty clear by the fact that there's not a single analog dial in here. Instead, it's all taken care of by this twin screen setup, with the one on the left reserved for driving information, the one on the right reserved for navigation and infotainment. And they're touchscreens too for the first time, so you can pinch to zoom or pick a new destination pretty easily. But the big news in here is Mercedes' voice assistant, which is the brand's answer to Apple's Siri or Amazon's Alexa. And it's tuned for regular conversation too, so you don't need to remember any specific prompts. So you can say things like, "Hey Mercedes,
how can I help you?
Open the sun blind."
Okay, I'm opening the roller sun blinds.
And she'll take care of that for you. Now, it must be said the technology is still not perfect. There are some glitches and it doesn't work every time, but it is the best example of it we've used to date. The A-Class sedan spans just over 4.5 metres in length, just under 1.8 metres in width, and around 1.4 metres in height, making it marginally longer and taller than the hatchback, but the exact same width. And those dimensions translate to a pretty spacious interior, well in 4 of the 5 seats at least, and handy luggage storage of around 420 litres. So let's talk practicality. Now, I'm sitting behind my own driving position, and as you can see, there's enough leg and headroom for me to be comfortable, but I'm not that tall at 175 centimeters. And that said, I would never want to go 3 across the back with anything even approaching full-size adults, as it will be a bit of a squeeze. Elsewhere though, there are 2 cup holders hidden in this pull-down divider. They match the 2 up front, and there's 2 USB charge points for backseat riders too. But like the ones in the rest of the car, they are micro USB points, so you will need an adapter for regular plugs. But the backseat riders do get air vents, and there are pockets on each of the rear seats. Now the boot is pretty handy too, opening to reveal 50 more litres than in the hatch with the rear seats in place. On the engine front, expect the A200 to arrive first, followed by the A180 and A250, and Mercedes in Australia will be putting its hand up for an AMG A45 version, while an AMG A35 version is under consideration too. The regular cars are all paired with a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic and will drive 2 or all 4 wheels. We're behind the wheel of the A220, which is actually an engine we won't be getting. It sits between the A200 and the A250, both of which we are getting. So while this engine acts as more of a guide than an exact science, it has proven to be a handy little unit, happy to hum along at 120 kilometers an hour on the freeway and serving up an ample, if not sports car-like, flow of power, so it always feels smooth and never underdone, if not particularly quick. Now the A200 will be the first to arrive, and it's powered by the new turbocharged 1.3 litre engine from the A-Class hatch, good for 120 kilowatts and 250 newton meters, and they're not stratospheric numbers, sure, but they are enough to move a car this small along. The 7-speed gearbox is a good unit too, going about its thing in the background largely imperceptibly, which is exactly what you want from an automatic gearbox. And I've actually been pretty impressed by the ride too, soaking up lumps and bumps commendably, although they are more noticeable in the back seat. Now adaptive dampers aren't standard, so putting the dynamic control into sport impacts the steering, the gearbox and the ESP system. But even with the standard suspension and in its sportiest setting, it acquits itself pretty well on a windy road. There was some really fast and flowing stuff on the way here, and the car behaved really nicely throughout. It sat flat through bends and it showed a real eagerness to be pushed. Again, it's not a sports car. It's not designed to be a sports car, but if you do find yourself on the right twisting road, this thing is actually more fun than you might expect, and it paints a very positive picture for the incoming A35 and A45 version of this car. Now the real party trick, of course, is the cabin tech, and it is a relief to find a German premium car with a really exciting, new feeling cabin. And I don't think you will get sick of the, "Hey Mercedes,
how can I help you?
I'm too hot in here."
I'm setting the temperature to 63 degrees.
Now that's pretty clever. I will point out though, we are in America, that's 63 degrees Fahrenheit. If it was 63 degrees Celsius, we'd likely be boiled alive. But still, a neat party trick. The humble sedan might have dropped off the new car radar in Australia, but Mercedes reckons this A-Class version will be enough to drag customers back, suggesting it could add as much as 25% more sales to A-Class totals in Oz. And having just spent some time behind the wheel of the little techno box, we reckon they might be right.